Hi everyone in INF435. At least some of you have indicated that you'd like a bit of a brush up with your library skills. So I thought the easiest way to do that was just to make a short video that you could watch in your own time. So we're going to have a look at a few different ways that you can find information for assessment tasks. And although I'm concentrating sort of on I guess subject material for this particular subject, these skills are transferable and you can use them in any subject. Okay, so I guess the first thing just to point out that you probably already know is that there are two different library sites. So we have here from the home page, we have the main CSU library site. This has a lot of information that probably isn't relevant to most students. So we have information here for academic staff and also for researchers. So that's why I guess a few years ago the decision was made to have a separate library site that is accessible from the student portal, which is this one. You're probably quite familiar with it. And all the information that was pulled into there is really relevant for students and not for the whole community, I guess. So when you're thinking about searching for material for your assessment tasks, one of the first things you want to do is perform a topic analysis. You've probably already come across this term at various times in your study. If you're not quite sure what a topic analysis is, then head over to the list of training tutorials and videos that are available, and you'll find that there's quite a bit of information here. So there's some really useful little video tutorials here, and there is one on topic analysis. So all that means is basically pulling apart your assessment question, and so you can work out exactly what it is you've been asked to do. I think one of the major problems I always find when marking student assessments is that students may do a fabulous assessment, but they haven't actually answered the assessment question. So to make sure that you are doing exactly what's required, then a topic analysis at the beginning is always a good idea. Okay, let's just head back and start with Primo Search. I'm sure you're aware it's the this is the search tool of the library. It's a discovery system and it searches into the library collection, so all of the hard copy items on the shelves, but also right into the databases right down to article level. So if you're starting off with your research, it's not a bad place to start. You know, it has limitations. Sometimes I find that it doesn't always bring back what I expect it to, but that's probably the same with most search systems. You can also see that if you need a bit of help with the library, there is a library chat service. If you need to ask a question about anything that you're accessing, you know, if you're not sure about something, you can just click on the chat, and during library hours there will be someone there to help you. We're just going to close that for now. So I'm just going to put a couple of search terms in, and I'm going to start with collection management. I'm not doing this specifically, I guess, on the topics that you're covering in your blog post, because I didn't really want to advantage or disadvantage anyone. So I'm doing a really broad sort of search today, but it's going to give you the same techniques you can use for anything. Okay, so collection management I've put in quotation marks, which means it will search as a I might just close my email, which I should have done to start with. So it will search as a phrase those two words, and we're going to use a Boolean operator, which is AND, which means when I search for collection management and this term, it will bring me back documents with both of those terms in my search. So you'll notice I've used a little symbol at the end of library, so that's a truncation symbol. That's quite common to most databases, and that means that that will search for library but also the plural, librarian, libraries, and librarians. Okay, it means I don't have to specify every single term when I'm searching. So I'm just going to do a broad search on those two terms. Now, as you can see, we've got sort of 20,000 results, which is quite common considering how much information there is in the database. So we need to try and filter these down a bit. Excuse me. So one of the filters that you will probably want to choose if you're looking for material that you can access immediately is to filter to available online. You don't have to do that. You can borrow the books. So if you feel like you want to see everything that's in the library, then you don't need to choose that option. For today, I'm just going to pick that and apply that filter. I'm also going to look down here and apply a date filter because I want to get fairly current information. So I'm going to change that to, let's make it the last 5 years, although 5 years I guess would be from 2020 would be 15. We'll refine that. So we've managed to now bring our search down to around 5,000 results. So it's still too many. We're going to have to find some other way to sort of narrow these down a bit. So there's a few different ways you can do this. If you are sure that you only want articles, then you can tick peer-reviewed journals, or you can choose articles here. If you don't really mind what type of resource that you're returning, you can come down here to the topics and have a look here at the sort of things you might want to include. Okay, so I think we'll include, let's see, collection development. What else have we got here? Collection management, maybe? Collection management and libraries. So as you can see, you can kind of tick these just to include them. The other thing you can do is to actually exclude items. So if you decide that this, acquisition of privately printed books isn't going to be relevant, you can click on the right-hand side and that will actually exclude that topic. So now when we apply our filters, you can see we're now down to about 700 results. Okay, and you can keep on refining and having a look through to see if you're getting things that are going to be useful to the sort of topic that you're exploring. Otherwise, you can start to look in. If you want to load more results, I always find this annoying because it kind of jumps screens. If you get to the bottom of the page, there's a link to load more results. Okay, and that will give you some more results to sort of play with. Okay, to view something, you just need to click the available online link. So we click on that one. And that will show you where you can actually access it. So there's a link here to the database. Sometimes if you're lucky, you'll get a bit of an abstract underneath and it will pull out and show you, underline where your where your search terms have been used. So the other thing to think about when you actually find a paper or a book or a chapter that you find is useful is to look into the subject headings for that particular article, because if it's relevant, then you're likely to find other information under the subject headings. So if we click on, let's try collection assessment, you can see that will then populate that into an advanced search. And we're now down to about 52 results. So if that was your particular focus, you've managed to narrow down completely down to 50 results, which is pretty easy to look through. The other thing to think about when you're using Primo Search with these filters is that you can actually lock these filters in place. So you see if you hover over this left-hand side, there's a little padlock. Okay, and once we lock that in, if we do another search in the same session, it will remember those filters and it will apply them to our search. So that means if you change your search terms, you want to do another search, you don't have to go through and apply the same filters again if you wish to keep them. Okay, so just a useful thing to remember. You can also save items. There's a little pin here. So if you decide you want to keep this item to come back to later, you can pin it. Okay, and then when you go in, Primo usually will log you in automatically if you're already logged into something else in the CSU system. But if you don't see your name up there while you're using Primo Search, then there should also be a login button. Okay, but when you go to have a look at your pinned items, obviously you have to be logged in. Then you can see this is the item that I just pinned. Okay, and these are some others that I have stored in there. All right, so that means if you're doing a search, you find something useful, you can go back and find it again. Okay, you don't have to sort of, download it and store it if you're not sure if you're actually going to use it. All right, so that's quite useful. Okay, so that's Primo Search in a bit of a nutshell, sort of a bit of a very quick run through Primo Search. Another tool that you might use, which I find very useful, is Google Scholar. So Google Scholar is basically Google for academic information, and you will find all sorts of useful resources in Google Scholar, but the best way to use it is to make sure that you have set your settings to search not only the information that's freely available on the web, but also to search into the CSU databases. Now, if you don't know how to do that, we just go up here. We need to go to the little settings wheel. And there's a couple of things that you can think about here. If you are a user of EndNote, which is the bibliographic management system that CSU subscribes to, you can go down here to the bibliography manager, and by default it will be on the don't show any citation link imports. If you're an EndNote user, just click that one and save it. And let's go back to our settings again, because the other thing you need to think about in here is within the library links. Now, I've already done it on my laptop, but if you haven't, then you would just type Charles Sturt University in there. You would do a search. It would come up with that box. You put a tick in it and you save it. Now that means when you use Google Scholar for your searching, there will be some links that you can follow from Google Scholar into the CSU databases. Okay, so let's just do a quick search here. I'm doing collection management. You'll see I'm not using the Boolean operators here, because Google Scholar just assumes that you are using the terms in an AND fashion, that you want most of the terms to be in there. And also it will search plurals by default, so I don't really need to use a truncation symbol. Okay, so let's do the search for collection management. Again, I've searched for that as a phrase. Now, there's not as many ways to narrow down your Google Scholar search, but you can use a date range. Okay, so you can either put a custom range in, or you can choose to narrow it down to a collection of years. Once you come up with a few different options here, you can have a look through and you'll see that some of them may have a PDF that's freely available, but you'll also come across these Find It at CSU links. So when we click on the Find It at CSU links, that should drop us into Primo Search. And you can see it's actually given us the link here to the database, so we can then go into Taylor and Francis and it will take us directly to that article. Okay, so that's one of the benefits of setting your settings with Google Scholar, because often with material that comes up in Google Scholar you might find a fabulous article, but when you actually click on the title, it will take you to the database and ask you for, you know, $30 for a pay per view for the article. So what you're really looking for is anything that's linked down this right hand column. So that will either be a PDF that, you know, somebody else has put up, or it will be a link into the CSU databases. Now, one of the things I really like about Google Scholar is that it gives you this list of related searches down here. So often you can pick up new keywords that you haven't thought about when you look at the related searches. So sometimes you can come down here and get some good ideas for searching. Sometimes you'll find some books in here as well. There's a couple of things that you can do with those. If we go and have a look at one, this one should be quite familiar to you. Sometimes you'll find that, you know, there's quite a bit of a book that you can actually see there, and that your keywords have actually been highlighted. The other thing you can do when you find a book like that is to take the title and go to Primo Search and see if the library actually holds it, because obviously when you look in Google Books there's usually quite a bit missing. You might get a chapter and then a chapter might be blank, but you can take the title there and you can take it into Primo Search and just see if the library actually holds it. You can see the import into EndNote links here. So if you are an EndNote user, that's where you would actually find your links. Now, just a little word of warning about importing into EndNote from Google Scholar. A lot of time the data will come across quite well, but sometimes there's huge amounts missing. Okay, so if you click import into EndNote, and you can see it's opening up my EndNote library. That's probably just a little bit up out of the view. So you can see it's dropped that record into my EndNote library. Now that one looks fairly reasonable, although it doesn't have it doesn't have all the details there. So it's telling me this is collection management and it's telling me in what it's in, but it hasn't really given a place of publication or indicated whether this is a book or a book chapter. So sometimes, you know, the information isn't quite complete. So don't think by importing into EndNote you're getting everything there is. The other thing that you can use in Google Scholar that is sometimes useful is the advanced search. Excuse me. So you can see, look, there's not a huge amount of variation in you know, the sort of things you can put into the advanced search. But one thing that can be quite useful, if you are finding you get a huge amount of results and you can't seem to narrow them down, I'm just going to take that part of the search out. We'll just search on collection management. You can actually pick to search in the title of the article. So I'm a bit in two minds about using that, because you don't always know the terminology that the author has used in the title. So it may have collection management in the title, but it may have something else. Okay, but you can see if you're getting a vast amount of results, what this can do is to maybe help you find some more keywords. So you can see it's picked up where collection management is in the title. Okay, and if you were having trouble really narrowing your search down, you might be able to go through here and just maybe find some more keywords or find something that's useful, and from that useful document, find some more keywords. The other thing that's quite good in Google Scholar that you can use to do a bit of a paper trail through different resources is to use the related articles link. So you can see that will go through and it will search for similar articles on similar topics. It's kind of hit and miss how it works. Sometimes it's quite good and sometimes it's not. The other thing that you can use is the citations. So when you see something that is cited by 57 other papers, you can assume that if those other papers have cited that particular article, they're probably on a very similar topic. Okay, so again, it's kind of a bit hit and miss. You know, sometimes it works really well, and you can see here by using collections, we've got things on blood collection management, which are not, you know, not really what we're looking for. So look, Google Scholar, it is what it is. Sometimes it can be very helpful. The thing that I like about it in an initial search when you're first starting off is that it's very forgiving of natural language. So if you're really not sure yet what you're looking for or what keywords there might be or what the sort of formal keywords might be for anything, then I think Google Scholar can help you to probably narrow down the concepts a little bit and try and get you know, pull out a selection of keywords that might be useful. Okay, let's think about databases now. So I'm going to go back to the library and I'm going to go into journal databases. So this is, I guess, the gold standard of searching. So Primo Search and Google Scholar are both very broad search tools. So because Primo Search is searching everything that's in the library collection, it's obviously not going to be very specific to your topic. So if you're searching on something to do with libraries or museums or archives, Primo Search doesn't know that, and it's just going to bring you back a whole load of stuff on your keywords. And the same basically with Google Scholar. So because they are both very broad-based search tools. So if you're wanting to search on a more targeted way, then you would actually use a database to search. Okay, so when you search in a database and you choose a topic area for your database, this one's for information library studies, you've already started the narrowing process by searching in a more concentrated way. So I just want to show you something else which is a little bit off topic probably, but quite interesting, and that's our video and multimedia databases. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with these. They have a great wealth of information in them, and not just for study. They can be really a lot of fun too. So looking at the video collections, we have a couple at the top here which are very useful if you're looking for things like videos. So Informat TV has streaming videos from free-to-air and pay TV, and TV News has lots of videos from things like current affairs programs, documentary programs. There's a lot of stuff from ABC and SBS, you know, which can be really useful at times. The other one I'd like to show you is Canopy. And there's a couple of reasons for showing you this. One is that it is a fantastic database because you can find not only sort of very informative sources, you can also find some fabulous movies. So just for your own sort of, streaming pleasure, um, it's kind of the Netflix of, I guess, of material that's out there, and not all Australian, so there's lots of different things in there. You can see there's lots of things like documentaries, um, even courses, and you have free access to all of this information. There's new movies, there's old movies, there's Australian cinema, so there's some really fabulous movies you can watch in there, Australian documentaries, uh, classic films, some great stuff in there, short films, directed by women. So lots and lots of different information in there, and lots of fun stuff as well as educational stuff. So you can search. I'm way off topic here, but I just really like this database. So you can actually search, and it will bring up some different results for you. But the other thing of interest about this database, especially for you guys, is that this is a patron-driven acquisition database. So the items that we actually put into the CSU collection are driven by which ones are used by patrons. Okay, so just a little bit of interesting little off-topic thing there. Excuse me. All right, let's go back to our search strategies, and we're going to go back to the databases. And we're going to choose Information Library Studies. And that's not to say that you can't find information from other databases. Sometimes things like social sciences might be useful. Or even psychology. There's all sorts of topics that might be useful in your work, your searching. So I'm just going to choose the top one. These are databases that have been pulled together by library staff that they think are the key databases for a particular, any given area of study. So we'll just hop into that EBSCO one at the top. So you can see it drops us into the advanced search, which is a choice that has been made by the library not to enter into the basic search as the entry point, but to come into the advanced search. And you can see immediately that we have more sophisticated options available to us than we did in either Primo Search or Google Scholar. So if we do a search, and let's do collection, and you can see that "and" is the default to Gompai not terms. So I'm going to put management or development. So when the database runs off and does its search, it will look at, okay, I have to have that term collection to come back. And I have to have one of these terms, but I don't mind which one it is. Okay, so this involves our Boolean operators. We're using the "and" one, and we're also using the "or." And I'm also going to specify libraries and use the truncation symbol. So that's used very often in databases to search for plurals and for variant endings of the word. Now there's all sorts of other things that you can set before you do the search. So you can see there's a lot of limitations down here. I really prefer to do a broad search because I want to see what's out there, and I would rather start applying limiters and narrowing in after the search than actually before the search. So let's just do a search and see what we come up with. So we've got, a lot of results there, so we do need to start narrowing down. Something useful about databases, it's actually keeping track of your search here. So you can see the actual terms that you've searched on. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at probably narrowing the publication date. So let's make that 2014. Okay, so now we've sort of, I think there was, what, 20 something thousand before, now we're down to about 5,000. And you can see that our limiter is listed here as well. Okay, so there's different ways we can limit down. Again, down here, there is a full text option. I'm not going to use that, and I'll explain why in a minute, but the first option I'm going to pick is that I want some scholarly peer-reviewed journals. Again, we've cast out sort of 1,000 options, and we're getting closer and closer to what we're looking for. The other useful limiter here is subject. So I'm just going to pick collection development in libraries because that's what I'm interested in. And again, we've limited down. Now you can keep doing that. You can keep limiting down by, different subjects. And you'll notice that every time you limit by a subject, you are presented with a lot, with some more subjects within that subject. Okay, so it's breaking it down now. It's taking that broad subject of collection development and libraries, and it's saying, okay, do you just want, academic libraries, or do you just want Great Britain? So that's the way that you can keep narrowing down and narrowing down and narrowing down until you get exactly what you want. So you can see under each heading that there's a collection of subjects, and this is also a rich source of keywords for you. So when you do a search, always have a look at the subject headings that have been used in a particular article, because they can really help you to sort of narrow down a lot. Okay, so to access, there's usually either a PDF or a linked full text. I just want to scroll down here a bit and have a look for one. I'm just trying to find one that doesn't have full text. That one? Okay, so if you find one that doesn't, like this one, that doesn't have full text, you will notice that it will have a Find It at CSU link. So what this Find It at CSU link does is it goes off and it interrogates all the other databases to see if it can find the full text somewhere else. Now it doesn't always find it, because obviously we don't hold every single thing that is in the universe. We can't subscribe to every single journal. So sometimes it'll find it, sometimes it won't. We'll just have a look and see if we can find this one. But if you click on that link, it will go off and interrogate Primo Search to see if it can find it somewhere else. So we've drawn a blank this time, so it's not actually there. If it was there, then it would give us a link into the database. I don't know if there's any more here that we can have a look at. They all seem to have full text. Let's try this one. Here's one. And we're off into Primo again. Let's see if we're going to be lucky this time. Oh, we've been lucky this time. Okay, so you can see that that particular article is held within the Taylor and Francis database. So it wasn't in the EBSCO one. There was no full text in the EBSCO one, but by following that Find It at CSU link, we can see that it is actually in another database. So that is the reason why when you're searching in the database, it's a good idea not to tick full text only. If you tick full text only, you are going to eliminate those articles that are not full text in this particular database, but maybe full text in another one, like that one we just looked at. So if you had ticked full text only, this one would not have come up in our results. Okay, so that's quite useful. So there's lots of functionality to explore in all of the different databases. One of the things which is a bit like the pin it option in Primo Search is to add something to a folder. So you can see just by clicking that little icon there, it will add it to a folder for you to go and explore at your leisure. So if you're doing a search and you want to just have a look through the headings of the articles and see if there are things that you think might be useful, you can add them to your folder, and then you can go back and have a look at them in more detail. There they are, the things we've just put into our folder. Little word of warning, that folder is only active as long as you are in the current session. So if you go away and you take a few phone calls, make a cup of tea, come back to your database session a couple of hours later and it has timed out, everything that you have put into the folder will have disappeared. If you want to keep that folder permanently, then you need to actually sign into the database. All right, so that's a very simple process of making your own account with the database. It doesn't cost you anything. It's no big deal. It just means that you get your own little personalized part of the database where you can add things to your folder, and then they will still be there when you come back the next time. Okay, otherwise the folder is only active for the current session. One other little thing, I guess, that we can have a quick look at is, and all databases are sort of similar, they all might look a little bit different, but a lot of them would actually have a thesaurus, which is the formal terms that are used within the database. Okay, so you can look down here and see when you're looking for a different term in the database, the formal thesaurus will tell you what's actually used. So if we, let's try looking for collection, browse. Okay, so it's telling me down here that collection isn't there as a single discrete term, but these are all the different databases, terms that are used in the databases that may be related to that word collection. Okay, so sometimes as well, this can be another source of keywords. Okay, so you can come down and have a look at the sort of entries that there are in the thesaurus under that word collection. If you're ever not sure how to use a database, they will have help files. And they're usually really, really useful. So you can see the one for EBSCO here has a lot of different information on all sorts of different aspects of searching, what to do with results. There's a huge amount of information here on searching. Things like wildcards, truncation symbols, explaining Boolean. And then there's all the information that you can have there on what to do with your results, and also telling you how to manage and use your folders, saving searches, alerts. Most of these databases are very, very powerful. There's a lot of functionality into them, which is why when you get very familiar with actually searching, you'll see that they are probably the most effective way to search. When you're first starting a search, it's fine to use something like Primo or Google Scholar that is a very broad-based search, but then you'll find that the databases, when you get really familiar with them, can be very powerful in making sure that your search is exactly what you want it to be. Okay, look, that's a really quick look around some search techniques and strategies. I hope it's been useful for you.